I think minus Mr. Miyagi with his green shit doing this in the locker room and working out with Barry Bonds as trainer. I don't think this guy's getting back anytime soon with this. And,
he doesn't need Barry Bonds as trainer, pro.
it-
He's got the elite of the elite trainers, pro. Come on, mate. Welcome to Rogue Bogues, another episode of the Basketball Podcast, coming to you live from Australia and Dallas over there in the US, pro. What's going on?
Bogues, look at you, man, all spiffed up, hairdo. You know, no goatee tonight. I'm impressed, man.
I was going for the top of your head look on my face.
No doubt. I thought Kyle Collinsworth was a fucking co-host for some reason. So that's it.
No, I'm flying tonight to the Arab Emirates for the FIBA stuff, so I had to look somewhat presentable. I had that grizzly beard going, so got rid of that. If you're listening or watching this via YouTube, close your eyes, because you know we're not doing this because we're models, but we're doing this for our basketball. Playoffs have been great though, so we'll get into that shortly. But just a little bit of news. There wasn't a whole lot of news. We'll start with OKC. Sam Presti, Executive of the Year. That's not very shocking to you, pro, is it?
No. I mean, best executive in the league. I mean, you know, we've always talked about the things he did in the past and getting to this point, but even what he did just to shore up the team this year with Hartenstein, Caruso, not only trading for Caruso, but extending him, just the tools he's built around that team and just year in and year out, it just seems like they make good decision after good decision after good decision. And I mean, it doesn't mean anything these days because guys get fired when they win Coach of the Year or Executive of the Year within 18 months. But it's a safe bet that I think he's got good job security. But I thought that was an easy one, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an easy one. I mean, they built, not only do they have a talented roster on the floor now, they're super built for the future. They got flexibility where they can move those picks for another star if they need it. Where we've discussed it at length, but where it gets interesting for them is who they pay, who they keep long term. They're kind of in a Durant, Harden, Westbrook 2.0 to an extent, where it's like, they've got so much talent on that team. Even off the bench, they got guys that can come in and probably get double-digit salaries from other teams if that OKC can't front up, which they can't front up for all of them. Then on top of that, you have the picks. So it will be interesting to see how he finagles it. But if there's one GM that will figure that out, it is him. And you did mention the Coach of the Year curse, and that was Kenny Atkinson, Coach of the Year. As we speak, they are getting pummeled by Indiana for Game 4. So that kiss of death has come quick. But he had a fantastic regular season. But you kind of don't want that award. We always joke about it, but it's kind of true. I think that we've done some stuff on useful or useless stats throughout the years, where there's some sort of sick number with Coach of the Year winners and how long they last after receiving that award. There's a number of coaches that are gone within 2 years of getting that award. So let's hope he's not one of them. I think he's a great coach and should stick around, but you know how these things go.
Yeah, he's done a great job. I mean, last year, he sort of got a bum rap in Brooklyn. It's funny. I was in Minnesota and working out, if you believe it, and they were playing Minnesota. I was doing some consulting work for the Timberwolves, and one of his assistant coaches came in and started killing him behind his back. I'm like, first of all, why are you talking to me about this? Second of all, that's your guy. And I'm like, Kenny's always been a
Was he hired
really
by
good
Kenny
coach.
or the organization, though? That assistant?
That's a good question. I don't know that. Maybe organization.
That's usually the way, yeah.
I always thought Kenny was like, look, Kenny's a hard-nosed guy. I knew him from when he just got into the league, I think with the Knicks, and then he's sort of worked his way up, and he's a no-nonsense guy. He knows what he's doing. He tells you exactly how he wants it done. He doesn't put up with any nonsense, and he's a good coach, man. He's name, rank, and serial number. He gets it done. From what they did in the last couple of years to where they are now, I mean, that has a lot to do with his coaching, his influence, those players getting better. It's well deserved. So this series has been crazy with Indiana, and we'll talk about that. But it shouldn't reflect on him as the great job that he did this year for sure for those guys.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Bob Myers officially has said no to the Atlanta Hawks, which is interesting. So they've moved off him. I did hear Danny Ferry's name come up with Atlanta. Was he not there for a little bit already?
He was there. He was there a little bit. His dad, I think, was there way back in the day.
Didn't he have some issues with some inappropriate comments, I believe? Was that Danny Ferry?
No, yeah, it wasn't him. I think he was on the staff. I want to say that was either Atlanta or Cleveland, because I think he was on both staffs. I don't know, man. He's a well-respected guy doing his deal, running teams and things like that. He's done a good job. He was in San Antonio for a while, but he was on the staff of the guy who, I think that was the Luol Deng sort of weird comments about like family members selling artifacts or something like that. It was weird, but I don't think it was him.
So he did make some comments, implied a stereotype about persons of African descent when it came to Luol Deng.
Yeah,
that was in 2014, and he was the GM at the time.
To be honest, it wasn't him. I do know who did it. It was on his staff.
Oh, really?
He protected the guy. I've heard that from about 5 different people.
Oh, wow.
I do know who the guy
breaking
was
news.
Who wrote that report.
That is breaking.
Yeah, I don't do that where I throw a guy under the bus because that's pretty bad. But
it says here was like third-party emails from his staff, bro. He took a leave of absence for about 3 to 6 months there, and then stepped down by choice. But yeah, Pro's right.
Yeah.
It looks like it came from someone else, but because he was like forwarding it or whatever, he had to take the fall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good call, Pro. Yeah, I didn't know. Good, interesting stuff. Well, then let's squash all that. It's funny you never see the big article about the ladder, right? First thing you Google when you Google it, Danny Ferry controversy, that thing pops up. It doesn't pop up with the. Actually, it wasn't really him. He forwarded an email and probably didn't read it properly. Funny how that works. So that happens there. Kevin Durant rumors are starting already. Pro Miami or Minnesota are the two teams that have come up. I mean, he's getting up there in age at this point. How old is he? 35, Trent? 35.
I think he's older than that. I think
35,
he's closer to 36, 37.
Yeah, and he's a phenomenal player. But at this point, Pro, can you really build around him? You just have him as a a nice insurance. It's crazy saying Kevin Durant is an insurance piece, but he's 30, 36, 37, one injury away. Like, he's going to be slowing down. Still is a bucket, but could you ever see him playing a bench role in the NBA, Pro?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, same. But
absolutely
that's
not.
what
I just don't think he wants to do it.
I know, but that's where you put him on a good team, and you have him be like, hey, come off 25 minutes a night. Probably not this next season, but maybe in a season or so where he's slowing down. We'll play you for 25 and just get us buckets. Like he could put it, one of these championship teams. Like, imagine him on Cleveland off the bench. One of these teams that's lacking a bit of offensive punch. But yeah, I agree. I think it'll be the Carmelo thing all over again with him. But yeah, interesting that those two teams.
I just don't think it's interesting for sure. I do think there's going to be teams that cover them. I do think that I don't think the Phoenix is going to run it back the way they have it now. I just don't think they can. I just think it's where they've done the last couple of years with that team. You just got to move on. I don't expect them to get a lot, like a huge deal with as far as draft picks and pick swaps. I do think some of these teams like Houston, if you trade for a Durant, I wouldn't give up my core. Although I'm not huge on most of those guys they got in Houston as far as like untradeable pieces, but the age difference is going to be a big deal, a big factor. I do think teams like Boston, although Boston won't do it because we talked about last week about them shaving down. Miami, Pat Riley just said that they're not running it back with that team. And that being said, he said, look, teams are going to have to people aren't just going to come to Miami. They're going to have to make deals, and teams are going to want to make deals with us. So, Are you going to trade Tyler Hero for him? Now, on one end, people like Tyler Hero. Some people don't. Efficient, non-efficient. It depends on the night. Do you trade a piece like Hero for Durant? Yeah, you're going to get a better scorer, more established player, a couple of good years, and a great piece as far as a name and what he can do. But you're not going to, like you said, you're not going to give up a million assets. Like Oklahoma City can't make that deal, because of the salary structure. They're not going to give up a piece for him for that. I think they'll give up a piece for a Giannis or someone like that. So they're not doing it. But if you come into a team that has a bunch of picks, that will give you a bunch of protected draft picks that are probably like protected to like 13, and you're going to give them a couple of picks protected to 13 future picks. I would probably do that for Durant versus like one of these mega trades, 7 draft picks, or a really good player. You're not going to get that for Durant, I don't think. But I think you will get something. I think Phoenix is they're going to move on from a lot of this stuff. I think they're going to try to shed. Probably keep Booker and just revolve around him.
Beal and Durant will be gone. The Minnesota is the other interesting one, because if you bring him into Minnesota, I think that'd be a great place for him to come off the bench. Like, I don't think you want to take away from what Edwards is doing. I guess you can split lineups, but you just worry about such a demanding presence, especially with the ball kind of taken away from, if you've got a Minnesota where you want the ball in Edwards' hands as much as you can, right? So yeah, just looking for a far. It's interesting to see where he'll end up. But he's a guy that can put many teams over the top with the right buy-in, right? But I just worry that if you're a younger team or a team already with a couple of stars that you need to keep developing, do you bring in a guy like that his skill set is getting the ball, get the fuck out of the way, right? Like it's interesting in itself. And Miami could definitely use him. Someone like that. They don't have Tyler Hero can get a bucket, but they need another one there. So it will be interesting to see where that goes. All right, one you brought, Draymond playing the victim has been portrayed as an angry black man, Pro. I read up on this a little bit. I saw his comments after the locker. I think it was after game 2. I think it was in Minnesota, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And then there were alleged racial remarks made to Draymond whilst he was riding a stationary bike, kind of. For some reason, they have to have that bike right next to the crowd because, of course, why wouldn't you? So then a fan made a racial remark that came up as him being frustrated and making those comments. I think these two are two separate things, but they're being kind of bunched together now, where you don't condone, whatever that fan said. Fans just need to like chill out, and we've had that conversation many times, especially when it comes to derogatory remarks like that. They haven't released exactly what was said, but you can only imagine. That's a separate issue to now Draymond claiming that he's portrayed that way. Look, I've been Draymond's teammate, and I think what makes him great is he plays angry. Like, I think it, and at times it crosses the line. At times he toes the line. At times he crosses the line. You got the punch with Poole at practice. You got numerous, kicks to the nuts and all that kind of stuff, but that's what makes him great. So I think he has to play angry. I don't know why. I don't think there's like a media PR push by people trying to portray him as angry, the whole angry black man thing. I think that's what makes him so good is he plays angry. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's up and in, like from the jump ball, he's talking shit, he's getting in, he might be a cheap shot here and there. And if you don't have that, you don't have Draymond, in my opinion, as being his teammate. That's what made him so tough. And at times it goes over the line more often than it probably should. And I think he knows that. He's been on record trying to say that he's only a couple of seasons ago, right, Pro? He was on record saying that he needs to control that better, and he's done some work in the off season to do that. Then you can't then come out and say you're being portrayed that way neither, because there is a long line of history where that has happened at times, and it is what it is.
Yeah, you got too much evidence against him about a lot of the over the top angry stuff that he's done. It's funny, like when he came out to say that, there was this social media post of about 6 straight minutes of him doing fucked up shit.
I think I saw it.
Yeah, with like clown music in the background. So there's no way that you could ever say that anyone has anything against him with this. He's definitely angry. He wouldn't be relevant as a basketball player if he wasn't angry, especially at this point of his career. He's an angry guy, a cheap shot artist, but that's what he does. He's the equalizer. He's the new age. I said this a few years ago in the pod. He's the new age Dennis Rodman. Where if Rodman didn't play and he wasn't out of his mind, Rodman wouldn't be the guy that he was, and in the piece that could really put you over the edge for a championship. He was an angry dude. He was psychologically a little off, obviously a lot off, and that's what really made him special, and that's what makes Draymond special. Now, Draymond's basketball IQ, he's not the rebounder Rodman was, but his passing, his ability to impact the game with his toughness and ruggedness, and you need that enforcer. We've seen a lot of enforcers over the years. DeJuan Blair was one in San Antonio, not as talented as Draymond, but there's a million of them that's what they do. They instigate. They're tough. They do messed up things to sort of take you over the edge. But when you go out in some of the outlandish things that he does and says, and then you want to scale that back and say, well, you want to portray me as that. That's ridiculous. Now, the racial comments or whatever happened in the stands, that's obviously a separate issue. We've talked about the fan thing, like you said. That's a completely different deal. But Draymond's Draymond, but that's what makes him really good. He's a prick, and he's like I said, a cheap shot artist, and he's like one of those guys in WWF that waits for the ref to turn his back, throw salt in your eyes, and just puts you in a figure 4 leg lock and breaks your leg. That's what he does. And it is what it is. He's a junkyard dog. He wouldn't be the player he is today. He's probably a Hall of Famer in some capacity, I think, of the game. And he wouldn't be. He'd be 30% to 40% the player he is today if he wasn't angry.
Yeah, and by angry, I think Pro and I both speak that is a positive too. It's not just on, we're not saying that he's just an angry guy. That's always got a negative connotation to it. For me, it's a positive for him. It's what makes him, and it's probably 70-30 in the right way. Probably, the 30%. One out of 4 times shit crosses the line, and there's stuff that shouldn't happen. But the other 3 out of 4, it's fucking elite, right? So it's you got to take the good with the bad. It's my thesis of I'd always take the guy that you need to put back on the train tracks every now and then, rather than the guy you got to poke with a stick to be motivated, right?
You hate playing with him, and everybody except Jordan Poole say you would love playing with him on your team. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. But that's just I think the narrative around it, combining the race stuff, I think was 2 separate issues. But that's what makes him great. Yep. All right, as the Cavs have just been pummeled by Indiana. They were down by 20-something, and they just finished the half on a 19-0 run, so they're down by 40-something at half. So I think if this is a comeback, it'd be an all-timer. I think that's safe to say it's going to go 2-2. But we'll get into the Celtics and Knicks.
Oh, hold on. That will go 3-1, though, Bogues, wouldn't it?
Sorry, 3-1. Did I say 2-2?
You said 2-2, yeah.
Oh, wow. Sorry, 3-1. My bad. I thought it was getting 3 for some reason. Well, that still doesn't add up. But anyway, yeah. Celtics Knicks 2-1. This one's been interesting. I mean, arguably could be 3-0, Pro. This isn't hating on New York, but I think I saw a number, something like that. The Celtics were up in both those games by, I think, 40 odd minutes. I think it was
20 plus.
Yeah, I think it was. They were up 20 plus, but they were up for the 40 minutes out of the 48 in both those games. They were up. So for 85% of the game, 88% of the game, they're up. And credit to New York. You kind of see in game 1, it was starting to turn, made a run. And then the same thing happened in game 2 where you felt like, okay, now, and both those games, Pro, Boston just relentless on shooting tough threes. The run goes from 21 to 17 to 12, and then Boston just want that knockout below 3, where at times it's like, hey, let's just put paint pressure on. Let's get into the paint, pump fake, get to the free throw line, get a dunk, get a whatever. But and it wasn't like they were shooting feet set good threes, Pro, that came out of great offense. It was like step back Tatum, step back Tatum, step back White, contested Jaylen Brown. And that's what's cost them. And that was what made them great in the regular season. And they had that lull, was it in February, where they had like a really bad month. I think it was February. And Mazzulla got asked about the 3-ball and said, we're not going to go away from what makes us great. But this is the danger of the way that style of play is. You could have a 4 or 5 game run where you can't throw it in the ocean. What is your counter to that? At the moment, they don't really have it. Last game, they shot a little bit better. Their defense was better last game, and that got them the win. But and that's backed up by numbers. Jaylen Brown's leading him with 20 points a night, and he's shooting 21% from 3, and 36% from the field. Tatum's averaging 19. He's shooting 34%, so just on league average. And the only other player that's shooting a decent clip is Peyton Pritchard at 41%. Everyone else is 33% or below. And then you give credit to New York. They go to the other end, and they'll get offensive rebounds. They'll attack the basket. Towns having an okay series, not shooting it great. He's 14% from 3, but he's 18 and 15. Brunson's just been Brunson, but shooting below 40% for the series. This series, it feels like an old school Eastern Conference series where it's very, very grindy. It was much like the Detroit New York series, 90s and the 100s. It's been a great series to watch as far as that goes, but credit to New York on one hand, but also I think Boston gave them 2 games. This could easily be 3-0. So I think this is still going to go 7. I think there's a really important game in New York coming up tomorrow. New York, not great on their home floor in the playoffs for whatever reason either. In the Detroit series, they squandered some games in New York. So I think it's going to go the distance, Pro, but it's been kind of a really bipolar series so far for both teams.
Yeah, it's a big punch in the gut to blow those 20-point leads back to back, and New York just come grinding back. They don't have quit in them. They're tough. They just play hard. They make the plays and they need to make them. But obviously, you don't want to be giving teams 20-point leads, especially in the playoffs on their home floor and coming forward. With Boston, especially in Game 1, it just seemed like they're. Everybody wants to talk about Oklahoma City being experienced and worried about them getting to where they need to get to. Boston seemed like they're that inexperienced team. It just a jacking up shot. Look, that's what the way they play. They shoot threes. I get it, but there's difference, like you said. Foot set threes, get in the paint, kick it out. Hit the trail. Those types of threes a lot better than just the threes they were getting, and it just you're living and dying by it. It's just a tough way to live. Tatum, Brown's really not being efficient, scoring, but like you said, shooting a really low clip. Tatum, it's interesting. He's such a talented guy, a talented player, but, he gets this rap, but, about not really getting to where he needs to get to in these big moments. Now, I don't really agree with that the whole way. I think he is a really talented player, but I think he needs to slow the game down and master what great shots are. I think he just loves that tough shot on a consistent basis. He wants to live that way. During the regular season, 26, 27 and 9 on decent clips. His shooting numbers went down across the board this year, but they weren't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. What I really worry about, Bogues, and I mentioned it before, is this Kristaps Porzingis thing. This virus that he's got that he really hasn't been able to shake in a couple of months through zapping his energy. Joe Mazzulla addressed it the other day about he's got to change his sleep patterns. They're hitting him with energy shots. They don't really know. They say they know what it is, but it hasn't really been thrown out there what it actually is, what type of virus he has. So it's an interesting deal. On the New York side, it's just got to be efficient. Towns is doing great on the rebounding end, physical, making a shot here and there, but he's shooting at a way low clip, especially from 3. To beat Boston, you got to grind them out, force them into tough shots, get in the open floor, play physical, get those stops, but you got to make shots. It's going to come down to offense. That defense, we know about it. We know what New York does, grinding it out, but besides Brunson, somebody else has to step up. Towns does it to a certain extent, but they got to be more efficient, and they can't be, getting down 20 and then figuring things out. They got to be able to match them, keep it some type of close in the fourth and the last few minutes, and then step on the gas. But, it's been an up and down series. Like you said, it's easy, could have been 3-0. I'm just wondering how it's going to end up. It's going to be one of those deals where I think it's going to go 7, which it's not in New York's favor if it does that. But it's just a interesting deal to say the least.
Do you have Boston or New York from here? We both were 4-2, I believe. Boston. Are you sticking with your 4-2? You're going to go Boston in 7.
I'll stick with New York, but
no, you picked Boston 4-2, right?
Oh, my fault. I did.
Pre the series.
I did pick Boston.
Are you going to change? You're going to flip?
Oh. No, you know what? No, I'll stay with Boston, but it's an interesting deal for sure. No, I'll stick with Boston.
Yeah,
I'll stay with Boston. What about you?
I'm going to stick with Boston, but all the odds makers say 2-1 with a home game should be in New York's favor, but I'm going to stick with I don't like changing my pre's, even though some of them, a la the Cavs and Pacers, is looking pretty shit right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll stick with Celtics 4-2, which means they got to reel off 3 in a row to get the series done. OKC Denver. This is much similar series, I think, in a way. I think the game today, which just finished not long ago, had OKC win 92-87 in Denver. I think, Denver probably should have won game 4, and I think OKC should have been 3-0 coming into game 4. That's what I feel in this series, how swingy it was. Denver steal game 1 somehow, running on fumes, backing up 2 days after that game 7 against the Clippers. They go to OKC. OKC had full control of that game for 47 minutes and then just didn't finish it. They played the analytics, which is generally the right thing to do, but they played it and they got bit in the ass by it. Fouling went up, right? They were up 3. They fouled to put Denver at the line. Denver knocked them down. Then all of a sudden, as it went on, OKC misses a crucial free throw. Ball goes up. Aaron Gordon hits a 3. They somehow steal that game. They pummel them in game 2, which you would have thought would happen in game 1. And then game 3, same thing. I thought OKC, for the most part, had decent control of that game. Denver tie it up, goes to overtime. They have a chance to win it. They miss, and then Denver just come out in overtime and win by 9. And then today, I thought Denver had control of the game. They had better control and better flow, and OKC stole it in the last quarter. So it's been a super swingy series. Jokic hasn't been great. This is what's hilarious about, when I talk to people, and Jokic is struggling, and he is. He's 39% from the field. He's averaging more turnovers than assists, 5.8 turnovers to 5.3 assists, but he's still 27 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, and we're talking about how poor of a series he's having. It's the bar so high for him, right? Like that those numbers are kind of like, oh, it's got to be better than that. And he's only shooting 40%, where some of these NBA stars these days are averaging, 27 on 40%. They're lauded like they're fantastic, but he hasn't been great. He wasn't great in game 3, and they still won. And then you go to the other end, and OKC just a lot of weapons that can cause problems. SGA. He's kind of struggled a little bit throughout this series. His 3-point shots deserted him. And OKC in general, their top 3 scorers are all shooting 20% from 3 pro. So they're going to need to find that 3 ball, I think, over the course of the series to win this. Williams has been pretty good for him, though, with 19 tonight, and Holmgren with 13. They're pretty well balanced after that. A very, very well balanced scoring. But Denver's just going to need more from it. It's for Denver, in my opinion, it's going to come down to Westbrook, Brown, and Porter Jr. and what they can bring. Can they have that 18-point night that's efficient and play good defense? I think what's really noticeable for me is, the KCP thing, just missing that KCP in this playoff series in particular, that you can have another elite guard to be on SGA is something they really miss, and they're thin. But I think those 3 role players on Denver are going to determine whether Denver get through or not.
This is by far my favorite series of the playoffs. I mean, it's been a war most nights except that, that game 2, that game 2 blowout. But, Jokic, the last 2 games, he's been really bad shooting the ball, like way off shooting the ball, Bogues. They were really tired today, you could tell. Short turnaround because, they played an earlier game. They played 2 nights ago, and they played the early game today. I thought it's been a slugfest on both ends as far as both teams going hard at each other. believe it or not, Jokic defensively has been really, really good. Like people, like you want to, and I might be the first podcaster or media member to ever say to start watching Jokic for his defense. What he does to disrupt pick and rolls is really good. Doesn't really have a lot of great tools like you look at, but what him and Brown do defensively is really special to watch. They take away passing lanes, they disrupt you, shot, get deflections, hands. They've been really good with that. They just, Jokic just can't make a shot past 15 feet consistently. He's been really, really bad. I mean, I think they started the game off, Bogues. Today, I want to say they were like 2 for 16 for 3, and he was like 0 for 9. And then, the game before, he was really bad shooting it. But like he missed a free, a big time free throw. They got to the free throw line, something fierce today. They I forgot what they were. They shot attempt wise, but like he got to the line a bunch, and that's what you do when when you're not making threes, you get to the free throw line. Now Porter Jr. can't raise his left shoulder above his head. He's got that really bad shoulder problem. But he played big time last game. This game he was decent, but they really need him. They need him to continue to step up. Brown was good at times. He was good early, and defensively he was really good, giving him energy. Oklahoma City, like you said, SGA, I mean, what he does is just get to that mid-range. I know analytical people that listen to the show probably don't want to hear it, but he just slows the game down when they need baskets. He gets to the mid-range. Wasn't really doing a great job getting fouled throughout the series. I thought he got to the line a lot today. It was really the difference there. Their play in the short roll, or Hardenstein will catch it. They'll rotate up, throwing those lob passes to Holmgren. Chet's ridiculous with his athletic ability, being able to catch the ball and just finish on dunks all day. So some of the things they do there, is really been good. Caruso's been really good defensively. Wiggins has been good. I think Wiggins and Wallace has been a really big time difference for them off the bench on top of Caruso. So it's been a really fun. It's like a EuroLeague series. I mean, not a lot of tough isolation stuff. I mean, Shea will get the ball and pick and roll or isolation, bump you, do some isolation stuff that way. But it's been really good with ball movement. Not a ton of shot making at times, but Jokic has been, I mean, he's putting up good numbers, but he hasn't been dominant. And when he becomes dominant and starts making those threes on top of the stuff in the paint, it'll be troublesome. But I thought, I didn't know if they had enough offense coming into the series, even though I did pick them to win. But they're sticking with Oklahoma City, except game 2. If they can just sort of continue to slug it out, start making shots. Defensively, they've been good, like at the rim, like Holmgren, Hartenstein, anything they try to finish at the rim, Denver's there. So it's been an interesting series, but it's been really enjoyable in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I've enjoyed watching the Jokic-Holmgren matchup when they're matched up, because Jokic is just trying to go down there and punish him for the most part.
As he should.
But then Holmgren is trying to go, downhill, Euro, trying to use his athleticism. Jokic gets caught for a couple of little push-offs, and Holmgren goes flying because he's light in the ass. It's that interesting battle of chess, because Jokic can just run him over and Holmgren can really use athleticism. So I've enjoyed watching that battle. They've also done a pretty good job, OKC, of not having Holmgren on Jokic and then sending him as a secondary help defender. He's got a lot of deflections and block shots on Jokic's post-ups late, which I think is a really good adjustment by OKC. But this has all the writings. I hope it goes 7, because it deserves to go 7. Look, I think Denver are, in my opinion, a little lucky to be 2-2. In my opinion, I think it's going to, now it's obviously going to go 6 at a minimum, but it should go 7. And what I worry about from OKC's point of view, one is they're young and dumb, which helps them at times, but it also, they haven't crossed that line of getting to a conference final. They're the 1 seed. But what concerns me is Jokic has not played efficiently to his standards, and they've been in pretty much every game bar game 2, right? So you go into game 5 and Jokic has a 50-40-40 night that he usually does, or sorry, a 80-50-40 night that he usually does, then you're in some trouble. You're going to lose that game, right? So I think OKC's squandered some poor shooting nights from Jokic, which usually results in a loss for Denver, and they've still squeaked out wins. So that's what I worry about with OKC. But it will be, it will be super interesting to see where this goes, what the adjustments are, if anything changes. But looking forward to the next couple of games there. Golden State, Minnesota. So, Minnesota escaped last night against Golden State. It is 2-1 going back to game 4 in Minnesota. Golden State is game 4. But, Steph getting hurt in that first game, hamstring, we'll talk about that for a second. I just don't see him back. They said potentially game 4 when it first happened. And I was just talking to some friends. There's no way you're coming back from a hamstring, even a minor strain, within 5 or 6 days. It's just not going to happen. I think it's going to be a two week minimum thing. They've now, Shams has said now, game 6 at a minimum. There was game 5, and now it's game 6. It just kills them. If you know the game of basketball, and even for the people that don't, watch Golden State with Steph on the floor and just watch how much space there is for Jimmy Butler, for Buddy Hield, for Draymond Green, for, Podziemski, whoever it is. Watch how much space there is. Even if Steph's not involved in the action, watch how much space there is on the floor because of the attention he demands. Then watch the last couple of games when he's not on the floor. It is mind-boggling how much space that guy creates because he's so good. Even when he doesn't have the ball, you can put Steph Curry weak side corner and have him just stand there and it creates space, right? And Minnesota, I thought Golden State did a good job of moving the ball last game. And I thought if Minnesota squandered this game, this is one of their all-time worst losses. And they managed to squeak it out. It is 2-1, but I just don't think Golden State have enough. Obviously, without Steph, they just can't generate enough offense to put enough pressure on Minnesota. When Minnesota, I don't think were very good offensively last game, game 3. They weren't elite. Edwards didn't shoot it that well. Their offense was sputtering at times, really clunky, but they hung in there and they got the win. But, Golden State just could not score the ball at numerous stretches and they got it done. Edwards has been decent, but his clips haven't been great. He's 26 a night. I think Julius Randle's had a phenomenal series to date. He's averaging 22 points, just under 7 rebounds and just under 10 assists for the series. 47% from the field. His 3 balls deserted him a little bit. He's at 15% at 4 attempts, but he's 100% from the line. But he's just done a great job of even going at Draymond, just trying to get his shoulder in to their chest, making those little 4 or 5 foot hook shots, getting on the board, getting to the free throw line. I think he's done a phenomenal job there. But it's not a pretty series so far offensively. You look at the other end, Jimmy Butler's leading them with 23, 8, and 6, and there's not a whole lot of offense beyond that. Kuminga's averaging 18 for the series now after 3 games in one that he barely played because he had 30 the other night. But Kuminga's kind of contra to the way they want to play. He's a ball stopper. What I mean by that is you swing it to him, he's going to hold it for a second, jab step, pump fake, where the rest of the Warriors do a really good job of moving the ball. And I think that's the reason why he doesn't play as much as people would like, because they look at a stat sheet and say, how is he not playing? He had 30. This is all on Steve Kerr. He's not in the flow of offense. And I think late in that game, he got a little bit better with moving the ball and not overdoing things. But I think they need a 30 ball from Buddy. They need another 20-odd from Kuminga, and they need Jimmy to be Jimmy if they've got any chance in game 4. But I just don't think they can generate enough offense unless Steph makes a miraculous return from injury.
Yeah, I think minus Mr. Miyagi with his green shit doing this in the locker room and working out with Barry Bonds as trainer. I don't think this guy's getting back anytime soon with this. And,
he doesn't need Barry Bonds as trainer, pro. He's got the elite of the elite trainers, pro. Come on, mate. He
does. He's got the best trainer that medicine goodbye. Let me tell you that. But the guy should have his own Miami Vice episode. But anyways, that being said, I think that with Curry, I think you hit it right on the head, Bogues. He just creates so much space and takes so much pressure off those other guys. It's like when you want to be there's a difference between being really good in this league and a complete superstar stud. And you could be really good in this league, get 18, 19, but you're not going to bring it every night where you could carry a team. And Steph's one of those guys that you have to put every ounce of your scouting report to scout against, to keep him isolated, to keep him out of the fray, even when he's off the ball. And I just don't think there's many players like him in the league that can do that. And without him on the floor, just defensively, you could cover that team a lot easier. Now, their offense with split action and spacing and things like that is good. But this is where you talk about coaches being geniuses or coaches having really good talent. When you have a guy like Steph, everything else, I don't give a fuck if you run the triangle, the octagon, whatever the fuck you want to run offensively. You got a guy like Steph out there. Everyone else, their game elevates because of the fact that you got a pinpoint on him. They don't really have that, even though, like you said, Minnesota really hasn't played well. I just think it's going to be a tough deal. Buddy Hield, like I said, since the trade deadline, since he came there, I haven't seen him make 2 shots in a row before the playoffs. He hasn't had that consistent dominating, not even dominating, but someone who could really, get you out of a storm, score 25 over a couple of weeks span. He really hasn't been able to do that. Now the playoffs, he's had some success. But hey, look, this is where, if you're in the Jonathan Kuminga camp, this is where you could evaluate how good he is or how good he isn't. He's been he hasn't had a lot of, consistent time here and there throughout his career, but you're talking about how much talent he has, what Steve Kerr's doing to hold him back. Now, without Steph, he's going to have a really elevated role. And now you could see it's like being dropped on one of those fucking Survivor Islands to see if he can get out. And this is what he's going to do. He's dropped in the fucking, dropped in the jungle. Can you get himself out? And we'll figure it out. I don't think, even though Minnesota's not playing great, I just think they're zoned in. They're healthy. They're deeper. They could get more guys that they could really depend on. Like you said, Julius Randle's having a great series. Anthony Edwards ain't shooting it great, but he's still, he could still get you, he could get you 30 whenever he needs. Gorbert's been good in the defensive end. It'll be interesting going forward. I don't think that Golden State can get out of this.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, I think I had them 4-3. I think you had Minnesota in this one, didn't you? Did you have Minnesota?
Yeah, I think I did.
I think you did.
Yeah, I think I did.
But yeah, I mean, with a healthy Steph, I'll still be on the Golden State train. I just think you take him out of that lineup. It just, guys like Podziemski, they're the guys that really struggle. He's 23% from the field, pro, and 23% from the three for his 6 points at 34 minutes for the series. So guys like that, they just can't get that easy feet set, wide open shot, get themselves going, feel like they're in the groove. That's what, outside of Steph's greatness from shooting and scoring, that's what's really missing from this team. They're going to probably need some ISO Kuminga at times now. They're going to need another guy they can throw it to. But, Draymond came out, I think it was game 2, he came out super aggressive and was shooting the ball really well. And they'll probably need, I think it was game 2, or might have been game 1. But they need that. They need that from Draymond. I think it was game 1 when Steph got hurt and knocking down threes and just being aggressive, but they're going to need someone to step up. I just don't know who that'll be. I mean, Jackson Davis entered the lineup and played a little bit of minutes last game. I thought he was pretty decent when he was out there, just some athleticism, could catch a lob, but they got to find something. And credit to Minnesota, they grinded out an ugly win. Edwards didn't have the best game, and they still found a way to do it. So DiVincenzo struggled for this series a little bit. He's at 30% from the field and 23% from 3. They got to find another way to find a bit more scoring there, but they're probably poised to get through this and get to a conference finals. So unless Steph finds that miracle juice, and even so, if he comes back, for game 5 and they're staring down the barrel 3-1, it's going to be pretty hard to get him out of the water. You got to win 4 straight. With the other thing that concerns me about Steph is you got a hamstring. The amount he moves, pro. The amount he moves off the ball, the level that he plays at and his conditioning's at, with a half-healed hamstring, I worry that it's going to be so easy to retweak because he's probably going to come back at 80% if he's back at all. Just how much he moves off the ball and the amount of court he covers is like 2-3 times most players. There's a huge risk of it re-hurting itself, and that's something you don't want to see. So we'll watch that space, and I hope he's back. But yeah.
Do you think he'll leave the team and work out in Miami for a week and then come back like Russell Westbrook back in like 2006?
LeBron diet. You never know. No, unfortunately, he's not. I don't think he's on that program. But yeah, hamstrings, you just can't. Hamstrings, calves, Achilles strains, those 3 things.
Groins.
Yeah, you can kind of a back you can somewhat shoot up, vertebrae stuff you can shoot up, a wrist you can, but anything that's lower extremity, when you move at that level, I could probably get away more with a bung hamstring than Steph can, because Steph just, it's the amount of movement he does. He's flying off screens. He's, you know, when you do the sports track on his movement, he's always up there in top whatever in the league. So I think it's just it's a risky one. And, you know, I know they go into the off season. The last thing you want to risk with a hamstring is you tear that thing off the bone or get close to that. That's a long time away from the game with his age. So I don't think they'll risk him unless he's close to 85, 90%. I don't think he gets there for another 10 odd days. So I don't, if he's back by game 6 and playing at a decent level, I'll be shocked. So we'll see. Let's just finish on this Cavs Pacers mauling, which is just looking more and more horrible by the minute. They look completely out of it. It is 92-49 with 7.5 minutes left in the third quarter. Yes, I said that correctly, in the third quarter. You'd think that's almost a fourth quarter score for Indiana, but they're on pace to score 150 in this game and absolutely demoralize Cleveland. And, you know, this if Cleveland come back and win this series, which now every sports bettor and his dog will not be giving you odds on. You get really good odds if you want to take those, but Indiana should cruise to victory here. It just seems like the life's being sucked out of Cleveland. Their offense just awful, and what was good, you know, I think what was good for them in the regular season was their defense with all that length and size, and they have it behind in the paint. But I think what's now being figured out by Indiana is their guards aren't great defenders. You know, Garland's not a great defender. Mitchell's okay at times, but he floats between trying to get buckets and keeping his legs for that end. Ty Jerome's okay. Like they don't have elite perimeter defenders, and I think that Indiana does such a great job of pushing the pace that those, you know, your Allen and your Garland aren't even set in defensive transition to be able to contest at the rim at times, because the guards are just getting blown by. I mean, the first half, TJ McConnell in a half-court set dribbled straight through the middle of the floor, straight through the dots and laid a finger roll up, smallest guy on the floor. No one was near him, you know. So I think they're in some trouble. I think these kind of things, you know, there's 6 minutes left in the third. If I'm coaching Cleveland, you probably put your whole, you give it another couple of minutes, you just put your whole bench on and rest your guys as much as you can for game 5, and make sure there's no injury. But yeah, this is an absolute mauling that no one. I had Cleveland in this one, winning 4-2, and if this does go anywhere now, it goes 7. But I think I'm going to renege on that. I just don't think Cleveland have enough consistently to reel off 3 wins in a row against this Indiana team. Now Indiana can go cold though, bro. They're a team that can be up and down like a yo-yo as well. But it just looks like this game, you know, you lose by 40 or 50. Not good.
Yeah, it's not good. Now, obviously, health has been a big problem for Cleveland the first 2. You know, no Garland. They missed a bunch of guys in game 2. Garland was out the first 2. Then they took the next one, and they were pretty close though, Bogues. I think in the first 2, correct? Even though they lost both, I think they blew a big lead on one of those games.
Yeah,
big
121 to 112 in game 1, and then 120 to 119. Yeah, one of them they were up 7, I think it was, with 40 seconds left and lost.
Do you have it on useful, useless? The stat on them?
No.
On that. So I heard a stat that 3 times a team has in the playoffs. A team has come back from like 8 down with a minute to go, or 6 down, more than 6 down with a minute to go and won. It's happened 3 times in the history of the playoffs, or since like 1960 or something like that. And Indiana Pacers did it twice in a row in 2 games. You know, blowing big leads. But it's an interesting series, Bogues. Even though it's 3-1, a lot of the air's out of their balloon. I still think that they could come back and win. Look, they got a win in Cleveland, which I think they can do. Now they have to gear up for game 6, and then history is on their side on game 7 if they can go back. That's a big haul to be able to do. Look, the way they win is they got size. They do play, you know, defensively. They play well together. They got good rim protection, but it's their shot selection. look, Donovan Mitchell, even though he's averaging 41 a game, which I thought was a typo. I mean, he's averaging 41 a game.
Previous
He's
game,
got to
yep.
be more consistent with shot making. He's got to be able to do that. Their shot selection tonight was completely terrible. Look, against Indiana, Halliburton's averaging 15 a game. He's their seventh leading scorer, shooting 52 from the field, 44 from the three. And he's like their seventh best scorer. It's unbelievable. You would have thought that they would have been getting their ass kicked, but they got so many weapons that come out and hurt you. But against them, your shot selection has to be on point. You got to move the ball, you got to screen them, and then you got to get out in transition to get stops. You can't. But here, their shot selection's terrible. Indiana gets out of the net and goes, or gets the rebound and goes. They attack them, because one thing about Carlisle's teams, man, they're tough, they're scrappy, they'll come and attack you, and they've done that every game in the series where they're the first one that they hit first. But you can't have terrible shot selection. You can't have Donovan Mitchell's, shooting like 20% from three. More guys got to step up for them. You can't just half-ass it. You're not going to isolate your way into beating Indiana or any team in the playoffs. I think it's a big problem. Look, they're against the wall without question. I would just bench everybody the rest of the game. Get ready for the next game. Hopefully you can win in Cleveland, and then the big game is in Game 6. But I mean, the way the game's played today, though, Bogues, I mean, how many 50-point, 40-point blowouts do we see throughout the season? It is what it is. Back 30, 20, 15 years ago, you'd be like, oh, they're fucked. But, like, you never know. Like I said, it's a slim chance that they'll still win this series. But they got to win the next one. And then their big game is Game 6. If they could stay healthy, which, hopefully they can, and stretch it. I don't know, man. Indiana's, they're running it the way at the right time. They're gelling at the right time. They're playing at a really high level. It's going to be tough to stop.
Very tough to stop. And it looks like Donovan Mitchell, is that a hamstring, Trent?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It looked like he was grabbing his knee when he went to take a shot in halftime warm-ups, and then he just kind of like took a squat and the trainer ran over. So I'm not sure what it is yet. I'm trying to look it up now, but there's no reports out just yet on
ankle,
on what it is.
They don't know. It says ankle. Doubtful with an ankle injury. He hurt it shooting at halftime, pro. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows what that entails? But little comeback for Cleveland. We've got it to 32.
Oh, boy.
7-0 run.
Yeah, 7-0 run. They might imagine, like, yeah, once this podcast goes live, it'll be.
I don't know.
Come back and win.
A lot of talk about the offense, but what do you think of this zone? It looks like it creates a lot of mismatches for Indiana. Like, why are they going to this?
Because they can't guard. They can't guard one-on-one.
Those guard problems.
Yeah, and it's the issue is going to be. You'd think with the length that Cleveland have, that zone would work, but I think I think they've given them a head start of confidence where they got 96 points in 3 quarters. You go to a zone now, their eyes in.
Yeah.
Like they're shooting the ball so well and they're moving the ball so well. I think, Kenny's trying to find something that can help, something that'll work. But I think it
creates opportunities like
offensive
that.
rebounds. Yeah,
I mean, it's not good.
I think in a grind of a game, you can change it up. But I think if you're down by 20, 25 and the other team's flowing offensively and they're shooting the ball off from 3, because generally when you go to a zone, you're going to give up 3s. It's the same thing, right? So he's trying to find something. I get it, but it's I think this series is pretty much over in my opinion. I just think it's going to be hard to bounce back from that blowout. We've seen stranger things. Cleveland, can get hot, but it's funny that was Garland the one that was making fun of Hero for his defense?
Yep.
Yeah. It's not as fun when the Rabbit's got the gun, bro. Because he's getting pummeled.
No, it's
he's
not.
Getting pummeled
No, it's not.
He's getting pummeled in this series. You got to be careful what you wish for. So they're making a point of attacking their guards, and Rick Carlisle's a genius when it comes to finding weakness of what to attack on other teams, and they are going at those
Without
guys
question.
so much so that they might have to play a Strauss or a Ty Jerome a little bit more, but then they lose that offensive capability that the other guys are bringing. So. Interesting nonetheless, but it's been a great playoff so far, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that all goes. Useful or useless, pro? Warriors are 0-5 when Kuminga plays 20-plus minutes in the playoffs.
Mm,
That included the 30 ball yesterday. It was 0-4 before that.
I mean, it is useful, man. I mean, now they don't have Steph the last, what, 2?
Yep. 2.5, yep.
Yeah. So,
Like, I think he gets a little bit
Yeah,
of a bad rap, but I just think that he's an ISO athletic guy that probably is in the wrong system because it's a ball movement based system. I don't think he's there yet with his basketball IQ to play in that read and react system too much. I think he's grown up playing in I catch, I make play for someone else, or I score. It's not swing, 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 move, swing, swing, swing. So he gets a bit of a bad rap there, but the numbers, people want to get on Kerr for not playing him. He's 0-5 in the playoffs so far, and I just think I think it's useful where I think he can get your stats. I just don't think, and this is not a knock on him. He's young. He's got to learn how to be a winning basketball player, right? He's not a winning basketball player yet with his skill set.
yeah, Bogues, I mean, he's got to read the writing on the wall as far as read the tea leaves of how the game's played, in the sense that, like, there aren't a lot of guys who are good in this league that are just sort of ball stopper, just like, I wouldn't call him low energy, but I wouldn't call him like Mr. Movement either. So, like, to be able to live on, shooting 30% from 3, low free throw, not really an efficient player, but an isolation guy. There's really not a lot of those guys that are really successful going forward. You got to be able to shoot the ball. You got to be an efficient player. You're not good enough to carry a team. Like I said, and that's the thing. There's a big difference between a guy who could score 14, 15, 16, even 20 a game in the NBA and a guy who's an absolute stud. And there are not a lot of high-end isolation players that are not really efficient, that really make it in this league, that aren't high energy. Like, we talk about guys like Jordan Clarkson or Kelly Oubre that, like, they're ISO guys. They jack up shots, but those guys can get really hot and, they're efficient at times. Where Kuminga, yeah, like you said, he's grown up playing a certain way. That's not, the way they play is a lot different, but his basketball IQ really isn't high, but he's more of like just an ISO guy, but he can't really shoot. But now he shot 62% for 3 in the series, but I guess obviously that's a little bit of fool's gold, but it's just a tough thing. But I'm not a huge, like, when you play a guy 20 minutes or a plus minus sometimes, but man, 0-5 in the playoffs by playing over 20 is not, I mean, there's a lot to be said with that for sure. So he obviously he's not the reason why they lost all 5, but yeah, it's a there's something, if he's any type of a competitor, he'll use that as fuel, as like, all right, what do I need to plug up to get better? What do I have to plug up to make this thing better? But like you said, maybe wrong system. Maybe it's something that he'll never be able to do. But that's the thing. You sign or get traded to teams that, hey, look, they're not going to revolve this system around you. Sometimes you got to have to blend into what you do and get better at it. So it's interesting. But I would say it's useful.
Yeah, they're gonna need him too. If they that's the unfortunate thing. And he hasn't had a lot of runs on the board, not a lot of rhythm with him playing deep minutes for them during the regular season, where Steve's now counting on him a little bit and he's got to give him something. So it's just a learning curve. It's not a knock on him. He's a young player still. He's relatively young. Was he 1 year in the G League Elite and then out of high school and then came to the NBA? So still super inexperienced as far as these chess games in the playoffs go. So it's not a knock on him, but it's just a matter of getting better as a player. All right, last one for useful or useless. First time in NBA history, Pro, all 4 road teams won game 1 in the conference semifinals.
Useless, but really, really interesting to read about. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it just happens. You just lost, whatever. It is interesting that all 4 lost, but I mean, interesting stat for sure. Just one of those things that just happens. But I mean, it's just the way the playoffs are going, folks. It's weird, man. There's a lot of weird shit going on with teams and, in high seeds and, not being able to sustain leads in series and giving up games and, seeing themselves probably close to elimination. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think just since COVID, it's still teams, not that they don't value home court advantage. I don't think it's overly a priority anymore. regular season. You looked at Boston. You'd rather, hey, if we go on a 5-game win streak to close the season out, we've got a chance for the 1 seed. It's kind of like, let's just rest a few of our stars and make sure they're healthy. It's kind of weighted a bit more that way now than it is, let's just go for home court at all costs. I don't think players or teams now are so gung-ho about that. And teams don't protect that floor as much anymore. It's kind of flipped on its head. We've seen it in the Eastern Conference playoffs with Detroit and New York and numerous other teams. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting stat, but not the end of the world for a lot of those teams. I don't think they overreact to it anymore like they once did.
And also, Bogues, like the way the landscape's changed in the NBA, how many hostile environments are there in the NBA anymore? All right. I mean, I'm just going down West and East. Dallas, I would say Dallas has got one of the best fan bases in the league. Golden State, I mean, they get that place pretty round, right?
Not disrespect to Golden State fans, but I think Oakland, yes, Oakland was insane.
Yeah,
well, that place was like, and look, they still do a decent job, but it was nothing like Oakland. Oakland was fantastic. Philly's good when they make it.
Yeah, Philly, Oklahoma City,
New York's
Boston,
okay, right? New York's, but it's not hostile. I wouldn't look.
New York.
Yeah.
I mean,
OKC's actually pretty good. No, OKC's actually pretty good.
I mentioned OKC.
Oh, did you? Yeah,
already,
OKC was a bitch. Even during the regular season, those people are loud. They love it. They're proud. Utah was a good one back in the day. LA teams, the Clippers have that artificial shit with the scoreboard and all that, I guess. But they're
but not enough.
Nah,
they don't really have enough history.
Portland was pretty dead. So Portland was dead. Houston actually was decent when they were good. They were actually okay. Toronto was good actually. Toronto was very good, but that was a finals run, right? But Toronto was that place was pumping.
Right. So like mostly LA now. Look, the new arena, we talk about that, but like mostly LA is like arrive at halftime.
Like Miami, Atlanta,
halftime type crowd. Miami, same thing. You don't really have that really hostile environment anymore of the old Forum in LA, Boston Garden we have it, but like. You just don't have that anymore. Like you said, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know if you remember in the 80s or 90s, like, or just watching those games, Detroit, how like when they used to play in the Silver Dome and the Auburn Hills still, like those guys, I mean, that was a scary environment. So you definitely have a 8-9 point advantage by just going in there, by your home court. So I do think that supports it, Bogues. I do think that home court's a little bit, plus how players are a little bit more lackadaisical now. It's interesting. Sometimes they play better on the road than they play at home. So that home court deal is an interesting deal for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. Fact or fake news? What do you got?
Bogues, I mean, we talk about the playoffs and all these road wins and low seed or high seeds, on the brink of elimination. There will be a final without a top 2 seed, both teams not a top 2 seed. Fact or fake news?
Not a top 2 seed.
So Oklahoma City is the only top 2 left in the West. And then you've got
Boston.
Cleveland on the brink of elimination and Boston sort of on the ropes. So will you see a final with 2 non-numbered top 2 seeds in the East and West?
2 numbered.
Both teams now, not just one.
Yeah, I think So it's either, you're saying it should be Boston and Thunder. Yeah, that's a tough one. But the odds would say there won't be because the Pacers are about to knock out Cleveland, Boston, New York's.
I'll tell you what, they'll have if they win this series, which they probably will. They will have a head of steam that they're not going to care who comes out of that Boston-New York series.
I agree.
It's going to be
a good series, regardless.
Yeah, I'll be really, if I'm Boston, especially the way they're not stepping up and playing the way they need to be playing, I'll be very afraid. Either team should be afraid of Indiana. The way they just sort of pumbling through, man. And then Oklahoma City, they got to get through Denver, which, I can't say they will because I got Denver.
I think OKC Denver's the worst matchup for them, for OKC. But I think OKC Minnesota is probably a better matchup, right? You'd think.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, you probably see. Yeah.
So the way you think of it now, Bogues, the way you're picking it, the way you've done your picks, you'll probably say Oklahoma City comes out of the West, and whatever comes out of the East. But they'd already have a top 2 seed in there. I don't think
even though I picked OKC 4-3, I think that's a coin flip of a series. I don't know if the Thunder have. The young thing, just that can they break through that conference finals? It ramps up. Minnesota were there last season.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota do get. Let's just saying, if Minnesota do get through and the Thunder get through, can they block that noise out and finally get to the finals? That's going to be the interesting one. But it's so hard to call for me. I mean, Boston could go on a 3-game rampage and win all 3. New York could knock them out. Like, the only one I'm probably confident on right now is Cleveland getting pummeled by Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana getting through. But I'll say fact. There will be either. Do you say just one? There'll be just one. You can have one.
Yeah, there
right?
won't be any. So there won't be any.
Fake news.
If there's
one, I think Boston. It's Boston or Thunder. You're banking on getting to the finals. I think one of them will be there.
Yeah, I say so too. But it is something I like talking about and sort of, getting your opinion on, just because it's interesting, man. Like, it's what if you have Bogues like Minnesota, Indiana in the final?
You have Adam Silver on the nuke button. And the TV executives with a knife to his throat.
Who the referees that they always want to extend a series?
I mean, even Denver, Indiana, it's the same shit, right? Like Denver, Indiana, even OKC. I know they're the 1 seed. Like, the NBA would love, if they're looking at this, they would love Warriors, Knicks, Warriors, Celtics would be their pipe dream, right? That's when you're looking at markets. That's what you want.
But
that's not going to happen.
That final will remind me of like the Knicks, San Antonio, when Ewing got hurt.
Yeah,
so Larry Johnson was guarding fucking Duncan. Oh God, what an awful series that was.
What did that end up? Was that a sweep?
They won 1 game.
Yeah, 4-1, right?
I think they won 1 game. I think LJ made a shot at the buzzer. He did that
that's right.
flex thing.
That was a bad season. That was a lockout year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just an all-around terrible year for
NBA. God. Yeah, that Achilles, that I don't know when Ewing did it, but he tore his Achilles and
early in the playoffs. No, it was like late in the season, wasn't it? Because they went to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it was late season.
They were the 8th seed and went on this stupid run and got to the finals.
Bogues, unbelievable. Fucking Van Gundy can't get a fucking break, the poor prick. But yeah, man. But yeah. So it would be interesting, man. I mean,
there was that Cleveland San Antonio series too I know they had LeBron, but it was like
LeBron's first one.
Yeah, it was awful. Awful.
He was 23.
It's rough, man.
He was only 23.
He was, he was. But that was an ugly series.
It was ugly. It was literally, let's just like watch LeBron put his like elbow above the fucking backboard and fucking dunk 18 times. That's all people were trying to watch.
Yep.
So.
All right, Pro. One, man. Next week, Pro solo mission. Is that still going ahead?
Yeah, for sure.
It is.
Hey, have to carry it up.
All right.
So yeah, I don't know how long it's going to be, but we'll figure it out. And that'll be. I'm in the Arab Emirates as of tonight. I'm flying, but I'll be. And then, Pro will do the show next week because he was breaking my nuts about mailing it in and not putting any effort. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I had one word I texted you back, shocker. And then you just went on this rampage of, all right. And then you put me on a group text to Trent. All right, 17th, he's on. Yep, he's going to do it. Boom. And I'm like, all right.
It's the 19th, Pro. Just FYI.
19th, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. So, but Pro said he'll do it. But I said, Pro, you want to do it solo? And he said, yep. Someone's got to keep it going. I think
why not?
He was trying to make fun of it. And then we organized it. So now he's locked in for it. So
I got to watch out. I gotta watch out what I text back Bogues at night, man. That's rough. But we'll figure it out.
Can't wait, bro. Can't wait to see it. I can't wait to tune in and see how much shit you're going to put on me for not being on it. That's the first thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely going to reference the fact where like I was like 5 minutes late and you, Trent, went on without me. Like I forgot.
No, that was like not 5 minutes. Trent, that was at least 15 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like half an hour at least.
Yeah. Come on, bro.
I think I forgot. I think we were supposed to like I forgot what time it's supposed to be, and I'm like, oh fuck. And then they already went on without me. I'm like, oh fuck. All right. So no, Bogues, don't worry about it. But it will be a short one.
Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait to see the
Trent.
run sheet. Can't wait to see the research you do. It's going to be phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Oh,
this is
it'll
going to
be
be an
great.
all-timer.
It'll be great. I think in the fact and fake news, your attendance records would be are going to be in a couple of those questions. So I got to figure some stuff out.
We'll see if
But, you know,
if it's that good, Pro. It could be. We might just have it as our last one train if it's that good. What do you?
Wrap it
And
up
if it's going to be good, I don't want it like, oh, we lost it. It got lost. It got erased. Just.
Well, you just got to
it's
remember
not
to
gonna
record
be
it
great.
again, Pro. You just got to remember to record it, mate.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you not going off on me for not fucking recording. Because, I did open up. That was a fucking... I
had you rattled. That's why. I had you
secondary.
rattled. That's why.
Man, that was a fucking hanging curveball to Barry Bonds in the steroid era. That was fucking brutal. But anyways,
All right.
hey,
We'll see you next week.
looking forward to the
Can't
NBL
wait.
coverage.
Can't wait.
You guys, good luck.
There's
Hey.
not much this week, man.
I'll carry it home.
All right.
I'll carry it home.
Later.
All right, brother.
And just to finish off, not a whole lot of NBL news or really much going on in the world of Australian professional basketball. NBL ones in their respective states are all flying. The Australian versus New Zealand series, was it the
Trans-Tasman Throwdown.
throwdown? It's isn't the Southeast Melbourne
Yeah,
Melbourne?
everything's the Throwdown.
Any rivalry? It's the
The
throwdown.
Throwdown.
The series went ahead. Look, it was okay. 2-1 for Australia. I think they didn't play too well in Game 3 over there in New Zealand. First 2 games in Australia. I love the fact that it's going to be inaugural, meaning it's going to be every season. They just got to time these better. I think they can have these games. There's a FIBA Asia Cup window. I think it's early August. Is it mid-August? Yeah, have it late July, early August as a prep tournament for another tournament. So you got, no disrespect to the players that played, but you got players that are probably in a better shape because it's towards the start of the NBL/NBA season, and then you're leading it into a bigger tournament. I think having it randomly in May, I get it. It's a first one. They're probably spitballing some stuff, throwing some darts at a dartboard, seeing what sticks. But I'd love to see this as a series that does go straight into a FIBA Asia Cup following season, FIBA World Cup prep before you go over to your friendly games before the tournament in whatever country it is. Have a month before you do this series, and then same for the Olympics. I think this is something that you should have every season. Look, New Zealand they're not horrible. They've got a pretty decent roster. They're competitive when they go on the world stage, as we are. I think it's a nice little tune-up. There's a rivalry there. It's always physical. So I'd just like to see the timing change, but I like the fact that they're trying to get it back. And from when I was involved with the national team, this was a series that was super intense, super followed, sellouts wherever we went, and it was a great rivalry. So hopefully they can just tweak it a little bit and put some more thought into when it's run.
Yeah, and I think it will create more meaning in the games if you're warming up or getting ready for a tournament. You head into these games and that post this, you're just going to go back to your NBL 1 team or whatever. There's no care factor. If you go down 20 points, you're already mailing it in. There's no, sense of urgency to bring the game back or work on your stuff. Yeah, exactly, right? So I feel like if you're on the money, if they time it better and, have teams put together that are about to go away and compete together, I think just the attractiveness of going to watch these games, the attractiveness of the games themselves, the competitiveness, etc., will just be at a whole different level.
Yeah, you can suit up 15 because it is a friendly. So you have 3 potential guys.
Yep.
That are, there's still three cuts. So guys on that, both teams would then need to keep playing with the bitter end. The score wouldn't matter as much for that because if you're in the selection process, you're evaluating even till the dying minute of a game. So I think that just better organisation around it. Like I said, it's the first one. They're trying it, seeing how it goes. Probably some, availability issues with arenas and all that kind of stuff. I like the fact that they did take it to some rural places. One thing I will say is, and probably a note for Basketball Australia and organisers, if you're going to have a international event of your national team, probably get them to take the pickleball lines off the court. I think that it just doesn't look good.
Is that Sunny Coast?
Yeah, it was Sunny Coast.
It was bad.
So a prerequisite for BA, which is probably lesson learned. That just does not look good.
No.
When you got 50,000 lines on a bar, just get them to get another cord or get them to sand it back and reline it for those games so it looks proper, because that looks like shit.
Yeah, and they have the Suncorp Super Netball there for the Sunny Coast team based there, and they bring a cord in for that.
Exactly.
And I think it would have been very easy for them to bring a cord in for that game.
But
as well.
I would guess it's the organisers.
Just lack of organisation.
No, you
I
wouldn't
think.
even thought about it. You're like, oh, it's a basketball court. Like,
Yeah.
surely it'll be a basketball. And then you get the court laid and you're like, why is there badminton and pickleball lines on it? And for TV, it looks horrible, right?
Yeah.
So I think those kind of small things, and that does put some pressure on these rural arenas and communities that do arc up about getting world-class events and say, well, it's bullshit. Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, they get all the big events, not fair. Well, if you've got them, then you got to put a product out there that looks good. And I know you're going to save money by not having to redo your court, but that's a reason why you can't get big events, right? So you have to. It does work both ways in that instance.
Yeah, I stood in the corner and I was like a foot or two behind the backboard. So like even the court itself, I don't think was regulation, because like when you were standing in the corner, I could see like past behind the backboard. I wasn't lined up with the hoop or anything like that. So even that, like just having a court that's regulation, even if there are pickleball lines, like just those little details
just clean
make
it
the
up.
difference.
I think clean it up for TV. First time, like you look at NBL games, you look at NBA games, the court's clean, the sponsors are clear, like it looks nice. I think it just didn't look great, and it's a lesson learned. It's probably something the BA is probably like, shit,
first time around.
Totally missed this one. We didn't realise. It's probably too late to change, and something they need to change, especially when, like I said, you go into rural communities, smaller cities. They're proud of hosting those events, and the town really gets behind them. You just want to make sure that there's a emphasis on them making sure that it's up to par with what it would be in a Melbourne or a Sydney, albeit not going to be 20,000 people. Small arena probably should be easier to do. Just make sure it's nice and shiny and looks good.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, I will be traveling. We'll see you all in 2 weeks' time when I'm back. And good luck with Pro, Trent. I hope it doesn't break your nuts too much.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting what the back and forth will be like there, but we'll do our best. We'll do our best.